life, wisdom. I'm Psychetruth Correspondent Corrina Rachel. Today on the Truth Talks, we're going to be discussing cancer. Before we get started, I want to ask a question. If you or someone you know has ever been diagnosed with cancer, and what treatments they may have tried, and what the eventual outcome of that diagnosis was. So please leave your comment below. I'm joined today by Beth McCall Whitley, and she is a holistic nutritionist and author based in Austin, Texas. She has had a personal journey with cancer, and today we're going to discuss her journey and her recovery. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe you can just give us a background into your general health and how your original cancer diagnosis came about.
Okay. Well, I didn't used to always eat very healthy like many people, although I always had an interest in it. And as I got older, I became very interested in what the mainstream media were saying was healthy. But aside from that, I was having symptoms on my skin that I thought was eczema, and they persisted for years. And I visited a dermatologist who promptly sent me to a cancer doctor, an oncologist, and they did a lot of different testing and thought that I had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is really a blood type cancer, and there's different forms of it, and it can manifest in different ways. And mine was a very rare one that manifested on the skin. So they wanted to treat me with, they said it was slow growing, because I asked, they couldn't tell me what would cause it or what caused it or anything, but they did say that it was slow growing, and not to worry. We'll just treat it. So one of the forms of treatment was a form of radiation that they used on my skin, and it burned, it itched, and it got to a point where I just couldn't function. So then the next step was going to be a chemotherapy drug, and that they used that was very toxic, and I didn't want to do that. And at the time I had 3 young daughters, and so I was very worried. And nobody, when I asked, they just said there's no cure and it's slow growing, so don't worry, it's slow growing. But no one, surprisingly, ever asked, what are you eating? What kind of lifestyle do you have? Or tried to address anything like that. They just wanted to treat the immediate symptoms. And it was a type of cancer that would come and go, I guess in and out of remission. It would, it would surface sometimes, and then it would go away for a while, and then it would come back. So it was very interesting. So during this time, I sought support at a local cancer center, and I was in Ohio at the time. And I sought support at a local cancer center, and they had a program, a speaker on Ayurveda. And it was my first introduction to anything alternative. I didn't even know about the alternative, any kind of alternative therapies or healing or anything like that. And the main thing for me at that point was hope. It was hopeful. It gave me hope. Like, there is something else I can do. I don't have to just take this death sentence that the doctor just gave me, even though they said I have, it'll be a while. Right. It just was comforting to know that there were things that I could take control of. So that was the beginning of my path onto alternative healing. And then I started experimenting with diet. And at the time, I also was having some other symptoms, some food allergy symptoms that I was getting sick a lot, having a lot of hives. So this was all sort of coinciding. And I went to a doctor for that as well, and they did the standard skin prick test and said, no, you're not allergic to any foods, even though I knew when I ate certain foods, I'm getting giant hives. So I just started avoiding those things, and took it upon myself to just educate myself, and started doing a lot of reading. And, at that time, soy was the new superfood, and everybody was saying, eat a lot of soy. So I started, I gave up dairy and started drinking a lot of soy milk. And then I had a whole other host of symptoms and problems that came with that. But I didn't connect it. It just took a while to really connect the dots with symptoms and what I was eating. And what I found was, after a couple years and during that time we moved to Austin, which is just a wonderful place for, alternative healing. And I visited a doctor who did some different kinds of food allergy testing and did in fact find that I couldn't eat dairy or gluten. So, and I had been off dairy for many years already, but the gluten was a new factor for me. So I eliminated those foods and soy as well, and just started eating, slowly eliminated processed foods, just started eating real food, and noticed that I hadn't had symptoms for a while of any, the symptoms that I had on my skin from the cancer hadn't been around for a couple years. And, it just all started to come together that what I was eating was in fact killing me without me knowing it. And things that, the mainstream media were telling you is healthy, drink your milk, eat your, bread, and, and not everybody can do that.
Right. And I think it's interesting that you actually did have the regular food allergy test, and it came up saying you didn't have any food allergies at all?
It did. It did come up saying that. And what I have found is there are different types of food allergies. Some are mediated by different antibodies, so that the IgG antibody or the IgE antibody, IgA. So after I had all the different testing done, some is done with blood, some with skin, some with stool, and it did show on finally the blood test and the stool test showed the severe allergies to the gluten and the dairy.
Wow. So back to kind of your first introduction to even this idea of alternative therapies, I really kind of liked what you said about it just kind of gave me hope.
Yes.
Because I know that in general it is kind of common when you get a diagnosis from a mainstream doctor that they do kind of just tell you, oh, that's just how it is. There's nothing you can do about it. I think it's really weird they were telling you not to worry about that cancer. And even for myself, I've seen, just how much hope there is in realizing, well, actually there are other things that we can do to affect our health. It's not something that we just have to live with our health problems. And kind of, I think maybe the most challenging thing is just the mystery.
Yes.
Of just not knowing.
Yes. Yes, and that is true. And I just, I do want people to know, I am not saying that, people can cure themselves of cancer or anything like that. But what I am saying is you do have some control over your health. And, just because the doctor says, mainstream doctors have very little nutritional training, and they just don't know some of these things, and some of them are very open to it, and more doctors are becoming more open to it. But this was a while ago, and people just weren't concerned about any of that. But it's so hopeful to know that you have some influence over your health, and you don't have to accept, there was no way I was going to accept that. I had 3 daughters to raise. That was not an option for me. I just couldn't. So I just kept searching. That's the thing, just keep finding, looking at different options, and everybody's different. Everybody's unique in their biochemistry and what works for them. And so, it's important to get to know your body and listen to it.
Right. So back to the comment that you made about eventually discovering that the foods you were eating were essentially killing you. And this idea of bio-individuality, that everyone's body is different and people can tolerate different foods. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on your experience in making that discovery, and maybe what it felt like when, I guess, maybe the light bulb went off, so to speak, that you were kind of able to connect the dots between, not only the digestive issues and the hives and everything, but also how that was relating to the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Right. And that took some time, and not everybody even believes that. People think, oh, you just had food allergies. But if that was true, then why were they treating me? I was visiting a cancer center and getting cancer treatments. So I think it's important for people to know that they're, if their body doesn't like something that might be healthy for somebody else. In general, I think dairy and gluten aren't healthy for anybody for various reasons. But they certainly can be the culprit of, there's a lot of research being done specifically with gluten right now regarding autism, regarding autoimmune disorders. We see in my career as a nutritionist, there's a lot of patients that have thyroid issues, and we try to get them completely off of gluten, because a lot of diagnoses are actually, the doctors are just treating with medication, but they're not looking for the root cause. And the root cause is very likely what they're ingesting every day and what they're eating. And so they're developing these very serious diseases that could be killing them, and they're not aware at all, because they think it's good for them. Or even if they don't think it's good for them, they think, a little bit won't hurt. When in fact, it's a little bit can really keep that disease process going and really keep people sick for long periods of time. And it will keep progressing. And what I have learned through my own experience is that, because as a young child, I had a lot of issues when I ate dairy, stomach aches and things like that, and didn't really pay attention to it, just knew I wanted to eat that and didn't care as a young person. But it will keep progressing until you pay attention, and your body, it just kept, until finally I had cancer. It's like, okay, you're going to listen now, that I don't want this in my body. So it's really important for people to pay attention to how they feel when they eat.
Right. And that's definitely something that we have, discussed a lot on our Psychetruth channel, kind of recognizing that different foods affect people differently. And yes, there are some foods out there that really can severely affect your health in negative ways, and that many people just don't know about at all.
Exactly.
And, so back to that idea of having some hope and having a little bit of control. And certainly, as you stated, we're not trying to say that this is a cure for cancer or that everyone could cure their cancer this way. But I think it's important to see that on a personal basis, you were able to reverse your health with these non-invasive methods, rather than the chemotherapy or the radiation treatments that caused uncontrollable itching to where you couldn't even function in your daily life. And I watched my aunt go through this battle with cancer and with chemotherapy and all of that. And, of course, having some kind of alternative, maybe more in the area of preventing cancer and maintaining our health. And I think it's also important to realize about cancer that it's not a bug you catch. It's not, a disease that you contract from an external source like some diseases are. But this is actually, something that can result from degeneration and toxicity in your body.
Exactly. It takes time. And you don't just wake up one day and have it. Like catching a cold. It's something that's, going on for a while before you really have symptoms. And that's true with many disease processes. You just, and I have a lot of people that, when they start eating right and they start to feel better, they feel amazing, and they think it's kind of like you get to a point you don't even know you feel bad anymore, because you're so used to that feeling that when you start feeling better, you're like, wow, I remember this. And, it's really wonderful to see people, that's what's so rewarding in my career, to see people just really get how important it is what they're putting in their bodies, and how they're feeling, and how they're able to enjoy life. Because I really want people to have a quality of life and not be on medications, and particularly as we age, a lot of people are, there's many chronic illnesses, diabetes, high cholesterol, and so many people are being medicated for that, when in fact, simple dietary changes could prevent a lot of those.
Right. Wow. So as a closing thought, can you maybe offer what recommendations you would give to someone who is either having health conditions like headaches or low energy or things like that, they're worried about their health, or even for someone who maybe has been diagnosed with cancer or some other disease?
Well, certainly, if someone has been diagnosed, they need to be seeing their doctor. But I would also recommend them seeing a functional medicine practitioner to get issues like nutrition addressed. And there's a website people can go to called functionalmedicine.org, and they can search by zip code for their area and to help with that, because a lot of people aren't really even aware of functional medicine or integrative medicine, as it sometimes is called. And also just even doing their own elimination diet, taking out the gluten and the dairy and sugar and seeing how they feel. I mean, sometimes symptoms get a little worse before they get better as people are detoxifying.
Right.
Like when you give up caffeine, people get those caffeine headaches. But typically you will start to feel better after a couple of days, and just sort of notice how you feel, start logging what you're eating and how you're feeling over the next couple of days and things like that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to thank you for joining us today as well. If you're interested in learning more about Beth and her journey through cancer, her recommendations for regaining your health, check out her book, Essential Nourishment, and you can find a link to the Amazon page where you can purchase this book in the description of this video. I look forward to seeing you all again next time. Please be sure to subscribe so you can see our future videos, where we'll talk more about these toxic foods and how you can avoid them. Please share this video and be sure to leave your comment letting us know about your experience or someone you know's experience with cancer. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks.